Good morning, and thank you for attending our session today. We're really excited to talk to you guys about mastering scale with digital customer journeys. I want to first introduce my two co-presenters, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we want to approach the session. Because our goal here today is to make the session helpful and informative for everybody in our audience and interactive as well. So please do ask your questions and so forth, and we're going to leave some time at the end. We're going to take the presentation down, and we're going to have some time for a nice discussion, hopefully at the end, okay? So with that, let me just introduce my two customers who are here. My name is Jamie Bertasi, and I'm the CCO of Totango, one of the leading customer success companies. And I have with me here today two of our very large customers. I have Karla Russell, who is the Senior Director of Customer Success and Client Adoption at Monster. And Karla manages 500,000 customers in Totango. And then I also have with me Taylor Cunningham. Taylor is the Senior Global Director of Customer Marketing at Trustpilot. And interestingly enough, Trustpilot has the exact same number of customers, 500,000. And the reason I mention this about both these ladies and what they're doing for their companies is just, I want everyone to get a sense for the scale of customers we're talking about here. I know many of the attendees in today's session will be from large enterprise organizations, and I want you to understand the kinds of things that we're talking about and what we're doing, are very applicable to your businesses, and you can do this. So with that, let's just jump right in. I will just mention one thing. I'm going to give a couple of slide overview, talk a little bit about, kind of the concept here, and then I'm going to dive into two different use cases. All right. So we're going to have Taylor go first, and she's going to talk about onboarding and digital onboarding and onboarding at scale and everything they're doing. And then Karla's going to go second, and she's going to talk about expansion and driving expansion at scale at Monster. And then after those two use case discussions and case studies, we'll put the slides down and we'll pull it open for questions. So why digital? Why digital first, right? Why is this kind of all coming up now? I've talked to many, many large enterprise companies, and a lot of them are very oriented around, I would say, kind of high touch, making sure they have a high touch model put in place. And I think the thing that, that's really transpired, and of course from the pandemic, we definitely see this, is that the modern customer success journey really requires a different engagement model. You can no longer just rely on that one-to-one human model. You've got to be able to use, kind of all of your engagement strategies across all of your vehicles. And also these days, scale has really become the top challenge. And I'll talk kind of a little bit about this as to, why people are thinking about this. But the other thing I want to mention here is that, traditionally, I think many people thought of digital customer success as being appropriate only for your tech touch segment. And that is no longer the case. Digital applies to all of your segments. And there is this concept that we want to talk a little bit about how you bring the technology and the people together to deliver the optimal customer journey for each one of your segments. So we recently polled at Totango, the customer success industry, and it came back, biggest challenge that customer success organizations are facing these days is scale. How do I scale my team? How do I scale my function? We can no longer get, reams of people from the CFO, right? We can't just continue to throw people at the problem as we have more and more and more and more customers. Both of these ladies that I just mentioned have 500,000 customers each. So, we have to have a model that is not, one CSM to 10 customers or one CSM to 50 customers. That's just not going to work. So these are the things that people are trying to wrap their brain around and figure out how to use technology to address. So what is the approach that we recommend at Totango and that we work with all of our customers to implement? And really it's this orchestration, as I mentioned, in a mix of both digital and human touch by each of the segments. You'll see over here on the left side of your screen, the typical pyramid, right? We've all seen this. We all have something that looks like this, where we've segmented our customers. We have the very large ones, the smaller number of very large customers at the top, and then our mid-level customers, and then our volume segment, and then potentially our e-commerce, our tech touch segments at the bottom. And traditionally, we would deploy our digital programs really against that very, the bottom segment, the customers who are, say, less than $100 a year or less than $5,000 a year, or, whatever the model is for your particular company. But that's, I would say an old way of doing it. And I think a more modern approach, a more successful approach is one where you blend together digital and human engagement. And, this is basically by really truly mapping out your journey and understanding what it is you need to give each one of your customers at each stage of the journey, using that combination of people and technology. Can't just be people. So what are the things, as you're kind of thinking about this a bit more, you have to take into consideration as you're getting ready to get started with this type of an approach? Well, the first thing you have to consider is that you need to have the data. Data is the lifeblood of putting together a successful digital customer success program. You need to know what to trigger off of, right? So whether it's a large enterprise customer who's stuck in onboarding, or it's a smaller mid-market customer who maybe has stopped adopting at a certain stage. You need the data so you can understand what's happening with your customers, and you can use that to create the right actions. The other thing that's really important to understand is that customers do not go through the journey in a linear way. The customer journey, and for each one of the stages, whether it's going to be onboarding, adoption, expansion, retention, customer advocacy, escalation of risk, whichever one of the journey stages we're working on or workflows we're working on, they do not go through linearly. So you have to make sure as you're considering your journey and you're mapping everything out that you've got that, you have ways for the customers to move around, and you can actually take appropriate action depending on what the customer is doing. The other consideration I think is critical to understand is that now is the time to be leaning into automation. I suggest starting with automation with one segment. And then as you get that kind of in place, and you're using the technology and you're using automation to move things along nicely, then you open it up to all of your other segments. What I found even here at Totango in doing this is that, I started really working with our team on the mid-market segment and understanding how exactly we wanted to automate that journey. And as we were doing that work, we realized all of these things that we were putting in place, all these processes and these nice, engagement strategies and communications and so forth and training was applicable to each one of our segments. So the beauty of this is you don't have to think, okay, let me get high touch all put in place, and then I'll come back to automation. You can start with automation as well. The other thing that I want to make sure that everyone takes into consideration is you really need to have an iterative approach. You need to make sure that you've got a solution, an approach, a technology that will allow you to very quickly iterate, because you're going to have to probably guess in certain ways, or you have some sort of assumptions going in, and those assumptions could be correct, or they could be slightly off, and you're going to want to basically iterate based on the data and your results. So make sure iteration is a key component of your strategy. Some of the Totango customers are iterating their programs as they get started once a month, others are iterating them weekly. But it's something where people are rapidly learning and deploying improvements. So maybe just say one quick thing about Totango before I jump into the use case discussion. So Totango is a leader in customer success. We're one of the leading companies in customer success, and we are the largest customer success company. We've had 313% growth in our customer base in the last year alone. We have over 5,000 customers at Totango. You can see this nice chart right here that shows the growth on the right, and on the bottom are awards from G2, Trust Radius, and other industries. We have really an award-winning product, and I think what happens is folks have some sense of what they want to do with customer success. They come to Totango, they adopt our product, and they're able, with this combination of people and technology, to really take their program to the next level, which is what we're going to talk about here. And we have this beautiful quote here from Jim Mercer, who is the head of CS at Zoom. And Jim has been a long time Totango customer. Zoom has been a Totango customer for 5 or 6 years now. And, we went through the pandemic with Zoom as our customer. So you can imagine the scale that Zoom had to manage, let me just say. And they were only really able to do that because they had the technology and everything already put in place with Totango. And it was a very successful year for them, as you can imagine, 18 months. And it's really a great partnership. Okay, so why are people adopting Totango, and what is it that's helping them kind of get started and really be so successful? Why do we have so many customers at this point, and so forth? And really, it comes down to something that we call success blocks. And Totango a few years ago came out with success blocks. And success blocks are basically modular business processes that you can download and that will allow you to very quickly get started with a particular customer journey stage. So you can download the onboarding success block, for example, for free and start using it. All the best practices, all the KPIs, all the paid playbooks, all the email campaigns are already built into the success blocks. Just go to the Totango Success Block Marketplace, download the success blocks that you need, and basically get started. So that is something that I think that has really introduced this concept that we call frictionless customer success and has been very, very successful for us. And I think for the industry. So with that, I'm now going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit about our use cases. So first, we're going to talk about onboarding, and Taylor from Trustpilot is going to talk about that. And then second, we're going to talk about expansion, and Karla is going to talk about that from Monster. So Taylor, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Cunningham, and I run customer marketing at Trustpilot. Just a quick intro to the business. Trustpilot is an open to all review platform where consumers and businesses can connect. So since we're focusing on our B2B SaaS product and onboarding for our business customers, I'll just give you an intro to why businesses use Trustpilot. We help you engage with your customers and then leverage that review content for marketing, and then also for business insights. You can make more informed decisions based on the feedback you're getting from your customers. So here's a case study for you. The challenge that was set to us was that as Trustpilot's business customer base grew exponentially, as Jamie mentioned, we needed a solution to enable onboarding at scale. SaaS onboarding is incredibly expensive from a resource perspective, but it's also incredibly crucial to setting a solid foundation for product engagement, customer retention, CSAT, all of the key KPIs. So we wanted to see how much of the onboarding process could we drive digitally with email, in-app messaging, and video while still maintaining those KPIs. And so how did we do that? What was our approach? Trustpilot has a really robust free product for businesses. It mainly appeals to micro businesses and SMB businesses that are kind of dabbling in the review world. So it's a large testing ground for us, and then also a relatively low risk place to test new approaches. So we deployed a tech touch onboarding experience for this free audience with the intent of understanding what our baseline level of adoption and onboarding rate could be with tech only, and then the plan to make a hybrid solution for our paid customers. So how did we do this? Jamie covered a lot of this, but I'll just jump into like the specific steps that we focused on to build this experience. Step one was we want to know what the key engagement events are that can correlate with high CSAT and long-term retention and account growth. This was an easy one. We already knew what these steps were. These are the events that our CSMs are already driving, so we know what the goals were there. Then we wanted to map an onboarding journey to determine when these events should occur for our various user personas. From the perspective of the customer, what do they want to do, in what order, and why? And then next, we want to leverage product engagement data and marketing automation to shepherd users through that journey and identify low-hanging fruit for replicating CS outreach with automation. So a really good example of this is like your welcome email, for example. If that's not already automated, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. The other thing that we want to do is build in some circuit breaker moments where if a customer hasn't done a key engagement event, so for example, at Trustpilot, a key engagement event for us is has a customer automated their review invitations yet? If they've automated their review invitations, it means that they are sending review invitations to their full customer base. They are operationally embedded. They're seeing value from our product. If they haven't done this by day 15, typically a CSM would reach out and talk to the customer about that, try to get them automated. What you can do is replace that manual outreach from a CSM with a first step tech touch email or an in-app notification, and see how much conversion you can drive just with that one email. Finally, we want to incorporate multiple channels. So I mentioned email, in-app. We also experimented with video. What are the various channels that you have at your disposal, and which ones are the most scalable? In a lot of these cases, we had the content already. We had video content, so it was just making sure that we were deploying it to these users at the right time in their journey. And then finally, we want to figure out where are the touch points at which human intervention will be helpful versus essential. And so what I mean by that is like, where is tech touch getting the job done and where does it need some help? And in the cases where your goal of your email is not being met, how much tolerance do you have for that shortfall? Are you comfortable with a lower conversion rate for a particular action if it means you get more scale out of your CSMs? Or are you comfortable with a lower conversion rate in maybe a less valuable customer cohort? This is how you decide when and how to sprinkle in human touch points with your digital touch points. All right, so how did we do? So our goal was to deploy Tech Touch across our paid customer base in a way that didn't sacrifice engagement for scale. We want scale, but with minimal loss of engagement or CSAT. So as you can see, based on the complexity or the value of the customer, we rolled out 100% Tech Touch for free, about 10% Tech Touch per enterprise, and entry level or SMB kind of falling in the middle. We fiddled with the cadence and the distribution here until we were comfortable with the metrics. And honestly, I think that the entry level cohort can be even more productive with more tech touch. So we're going to continue to test and see, like, what is the threshold? What is the tolerance for the mix of digital versus human manual CS outreach? At the end of the day, CSMs are made more productive and efficient, spending their valuable time exactly where they should and not where they shouldn't. And then we're also working more tech touch into the enterprise experience, particularly when it comes to account expansion and growth. And I think on that note, we will transition over to Karla with Monster, who will speak more about account expansion and growth.
Awesome. Taylor, thank you so much for that. It was wonderful. And I love seeing all the great results. And it is so interesting to see, exactly what we were talking about earlier, where, the old approach of kind of like high touch at the top, and then, very tech touches just for those really like bottom customers and human interaction and so forth. You can see this beautiful blend of this as appropriate at Trustpilot here in terms of the human interaction and digital applying to all customer segments. So great.
Absolutely.
All right, Karla, to you.
Great. Thank you, Taylor and Jamie. It's a great case study. I think I can take a few things, I took a few notes so we can look at our process as well and continue to improve and iterate. So I am Karla Russell. I run customer success and training at Monster. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about how Monster has partnered with Totango over the past 4 years. So for those of you that don't know who Monster is, we're a global leader in connecting people and jobs. We aim to make every workplace happier and more productive by transforming the way employers and candidates find the right fit. So we've been transforming our business in the recruiting industry for the last 25 years, but we've also been transforming our business internally with Totango's help. So we first utilized Totango for an SMB pilot that was successful, and we quickly expanded to include accounts in our other segments, other US segments, including SMB, mid-market, enterprise, and staffing. Our use of Totango may be different from yours because the bulk of our Totango users are sales reps and sales leaders, and then we have a small customer success team, and we also have our marketing partner who actively manages part of our digital customer success strategy. It's critical for us to have Monster site and user data, as well as our Salesforce data in Totango, to direct and focus our onboarding, adoption, and expansion initiatives. We have a mix of candidate, customer, and lapsed accounts in Totango for targeting. And I'm going to specifically focus on expansion, as Jamie had said earlier, just to highlight a use case that we've done with digital. So we send, digitally, we send sales rep driven communications, thought leadership, goodwill messages to initiate more meaningful customer conversations, also to generate revenue and sales leads. Plus, the sales and customer success team gained valuable time back in their day by centrally managing digital. It also allows us to keep our digital communications on brand and high quality. When we were allowing people to digitally communicate without this kind of centralized approach, we found that some of the communications that were going out to accounts were not exactly on point. So this allows us to work with the sales leaders and customer success leadership team to schedule digital communications that have an impact. We're constantly trying to balance our digital and our human interactions to enhance customers' experience and to be more efficient. When we look at our 2019 and 2020 results, you can see we've generated millions of dollars in revenue with digital. We sent over 550 campaigns, delivering 26 million emails with 2 million email views. And on average, that's approximately 47,000 emails delivered per campaign with 3,600 views. We had an open rate of 8%, an engagement rate of 34%. And we generated over $3.5 million in revenue as a result of these digital efforts in 2019. Now, when we kicked off 2020, we had a similar plan for the first half of the year, and then the pandemic hit. Yes. So we had to quickly pivot and rethink our approach. We couldn't be emailing accounts with monster product offers when some of these businesses were just trying to keep their doors open. We had to make a conscious decision to reduce the number of campaigns that we sent and focus on thought leadership, goodwill messages, and other messages that would add value, like college recruiting guides and post-pandemic reopening, free webinars to recruiters like leveling up during the slowdown, and the state of the market, jobs, candidates, and Monster's response to the pandemic, and many other messages and digital communications that we put out there to our accounts. So sales received calls and emails back from customers acknowledging our outreach and engaging with us. It was, I remember these first few customers that just wrote back, and, it was something to celebrate because it was just a really good feeling that we were helping them in some way to make their business better and honestly their day better. So sales, received calls and emails back from these customers acknowledging our outreach. And then we saw what happened was we actually saw a higher open rate of 15% and engagement rate of 37%. Now the revenue we generated with digital in 2020 was lower, but considering where the economy was at the time, things could have been much worse. And when we look back at the 2020 campaign revenue, you can immediately see here on the right-hand side that you can see exactly when COVID hit, right? So March timeframe is when it impacted our business. And when we started to rebound was in the fall of last year. As you kind of, might be asking, so what's next? What's happening in 2021? So we're continuing to iterate on our current programs, our digital programs, focusing our messages, and then we're also discussing plans to expand our customer success organization to support Canada as well as Europe as we move into 2022. And immediately this summer, we're transforming our e-com site, the Monster e-com site, and we'll be making major adjustments to align with that new business model and the tools that we'll be using there. So we have many exciting opportunities ahead of us, and we expect our digital initiatives will continue to enhance our business and our customers' experience at Monster. And I just appreciate you listening to this case study, and hopefully you can take something from that will help expand your business. And so I'm going to move this back over to Jamie.
Okay, thank you. So, this is also incredibly impressive, Karla. Just look at that crazy dip from COVID there, right, in terms of the revenue, but just the scale of what you guys are doing at Monster, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is incredibly impressive, especially with those really nice open and engagement rates. Very, very effective.
Thank you.
Our goal for this session today was to have it be helpful and informative for all of you who are thinking about your own customer success strategies, implementing digital. And so I want to thank everyone today for attending our session. Hopefully it was very helpful for you. Provide any of the content that we talked about today or the surveys and so forth. You can go to the Totango website also, which has a lot of this material already up there for you.